Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to my guest, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. When the cup is full, stop pouring. Lao Tzu.
Yeah.
Chris Daigle. I had the luxury, the privilege of meeting our guest at an event, Founders, through a good friend, Jeremy Adams, and was blown away by who he was as a person, intellectually, from a curious standpoint, and just overall character. I'm excited to introduce you, formerly, business development, a lot of things. I remember the digital marketer that a lot of people take for granted. So a tenured entrepreneur, acquirer, integrator, implementer, advisor, consultant, coach, currently on a project I'm going to learn today, chiefaiofficer.com, and formerly executive level at or beyond, maybe I'm off on this, Agora Financial. So the see, I get excited about the introductions here, but I guess, is it, yeah, CEO of chiefaiofficer.com or founder of chiefaiofficer.com. Thanks for coming on the show, my friend.
Thank you for the invite, man. This is exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, this is easy with you. You're a wealth of knowledge and a learner. So I have to ask, because all I keep hearing is ChatGPT, and I feel like one of the dumb ones that hasn't created an account, hasn't done anything, and I'm starting to rethink, everything, I guess. And maybe you can coach me on that first, that selfishly, and maybe I represent some of the audience in that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's hearing about, AI and ChatGPT and Bard and Bing and all this kind of stuff. However, most of us are too busy to really dive into it and explore it and that sort of thing. And the use of these tools is very similar to when programming, when computers came out and people were programming those. The idea was garbage in, garbage out. If you have sloppy code or you're not really clear on what you want the program to do, guess what? You're not going to get a very good result from the program. So this is very similar with using these AI tools. If you, I was just on a conversation with the chief of Moonshots, I think is his role, Michael Bressler at Agora today. And so the company that we have now is chiefaiofficer.com. And that's actually that's a role that a lot of forward-looking enterprises are looking to fill.
Wow.
And the idea behind that role is it's somebody who understands, or at least they don't even necessarily need to be an expert, but they need to be the person who is committed to the development of the strategy. How is AI going to impact our business? How can we start using it today? How do we use it in the future? That's a person who also encourages the tactical application of tools that we're hearing about coming out. So it's an important role. And if you were to Google or whatever your search engine of choice is, if you were to, what is a chief AI officer? Do I need a chief AI officer? I think you'd be surprised with how many articles are being written by respectable publications, Forbes, Bloomberg, Business Insider, and things like that, specifically on the topic of that role. Most recently, the US government just had a big hearing about the importance of a chief AI officer, specifically for Homeland Security.
Wow.
We're hearing about all the positive things that can be done with AI, but of course, any tool can be used maliciously. And my definition of malicious may be another country's definition of fair game, right? So it's important, I think, for every level of a business to be open to learning how to use these tools. And, there was a story that came out just 2 weeks ago about IBM deciding not to hire about 8,000 new jobs because, hell, AI can, like basic AI can do the work of those 8,000 people. It's a big chunk of,
Really?
yeah, 8,000 from IBM. And that's a very common thing. So one of the things that people are hearing is, oh, AI is going to take my job. And I think the consensus, the clarification on that is that AI is not going to take your job. People that use AI will take your job. If you, and I know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs here and leaders and that sort of thing, so it's not really folks with quote unquote jobs. However, it is going to, it needs to be almost like a utility. Just like, do you know how to use Google? Okay. Hey, boss, I can't, I'd like to know what blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me Google that for you, right? That used to be a joke. Let me Google that for you.
Yeah.
And just as much as people are, utilizing search engines on a daily basis for pretty much everything, these AI tools like ChatGPT and like Bard are going to be as pervasive, prevalently used as any other tool that's being used as Microsoft Word or Google Sheets, right? Like, so it is, we can get into, and I'm certainly not an expert on the theory of application of AI when it comes to human nature and what the impact is.
Yeah, the big philosophical questions.
Yeah. I think that there's plenty of smarter people than me that are more familiar with the concept that are having those conversations, and they're freely available on YouTube and stuff like that. But outside of human connection, right? I don't know that there's many areas of production. Production in a digital economy that won't be impacted significantly by leveraging these tools. So what we did with chiefaiofficer.com was we recognized that a lot of companies out there, they're interested, but my experience in helping companies grow is that, hey, we got a great idea. Well, guess what? We don't have a bunch of A players sitting on the bench waiting on a project, right? And most businesses, yours, mine, most people listening, those businesses, like their A players are at capacity, right? They don't have a lot of bandwidth to, so for them to really explore or, exercise discovery in the space of AI, they have to say no to something else.
Yes.
What we have created with Chief AI Officer is this concept of a fractional. The role is called a CAIO, so a fractional CAIO. My partner in the business is probably one of the top 1% in the world when it comes to all aspects of using all of the tools and plugins, and I don't want to cheapen his skill set because it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do. But so our Chief AI Officer, we have a second tier of Chief AI Officers who are available to support businesses primarily in the development of a strategy. Like, hey, I hear about AI is disrupting business. How the hell do we use it, right? So we come in and we work with organizations to help them first get clear on what their business strategy is, because a lot of times it's not that clear. So we start with business strategy at a macro level, and then what we do is we identify areas in that developed strategy where AI can accelerate the result, compress the cycle, like where they can start applying AI tools that are on the market today immediately. We also have programs where we educate all levels of the business, all the way from the front line to the C-suite. We have a certification program for somebody. If you were either interested in becoming a CAIO and hanging a shingle and going out there and finding a job, or you're a leader of a company and you want somebody within your organization to be a capable CAIO, we have a certification program for that, where they actually will leave that certification extremely capable of steering that part of the business for everything from, it's really industry agnostic.
How long does that take to do? To, like, let's say I started tomorrow morning,
About a 5-week program.
and about how many hours a day would you say?
So the actual certification, you can probably knock out in about 3 to 4 hours per week, plus some live instruction that we have where there's Q&A. But I would encourage anybody, because of the speed at which things are being developed and changed and introduced in that space, that I would encourage anybody who is serious about that role to not only go through the certification material that we're doing, but in the extra hours they have in the week, do their own research. Because we can't, and you know, in 5 weeks, we can't comprehensively cover everything that's coming out, because there's, I mean, it's so crazy, man. Like just a month ago, there were tools that we were using that now we've forgotten about because there's better tools. It's
So wait, this is like a real thing? I mean,
It's a-
I just want to make sure that I'm not coming across like I've got to grapple on this.
no,
I haven't taken the time to really look. I mean, because obviously I'm reading books all day.
yeah.
Maybe like I'm the dinosaur now, in a
Uh,
sense. What am I
so
missing here? Can we start with that? Wow.
Here's how I would look at it. The C-suite doesn't necessarily need to be like, as a CEO, you don't necessarily need to know marketing, let's say, right? If you're in a bigger enterprise, because you have a CMO, you don't necessarily need to know, IT infrastructure because you have a CTO. The same kind of thing. If you're the leader of an organization, it's not necessarily that you need to be an expert at the tool. You need to be able to deploy the tool from a macro level per your strategy, right? So you don't necessarily, let's say the CEO of an organization, they don't necessarily need to be the AI expert, but they would be well served to have an expert where they could say, okay, here's our goals for Q4. How can we get there faster? How can we get there cheaper? How can we get there better by using tools? And they don't even need to know how to use the tools. Again, they would find somebody like a CAIO who would say, boss man, here's how it's done, right? So I wouldn't,
Interesting.
just from theoretically, I'm very interested in it. And I think that you would probably be very interested in it as well. But tactically and how it works and like what's under the hood, it may not be of interest to you, but it's a paradigm that is, Buckminster Fuller had a quote that has stuck with me. I saw it was maybe at the Whitney. They had a big display of a lot of his stuff, and there's a huge quote when you walked into the show for Buckminster Fuller, and the quote was, "You don't win by competing in the existing paradigm. You create a new paradigm that makes the old one obsolete." And I've always looked for ways to position businesses that I'm involved in on, hey, that's the way everybody's doing it. Can we do something different that creates our own category, even though it's very similar, but the narrative or even how we do things is not, people can't say, oh, you're like so-and-so. No, we're not like so-and-so. We're our own thing, right? AI is creating that new paradigm that is making the old paradigm obsolete. And Matt, listen, I'm not a tech geek. I'm the role that I just shared with you. I'm the guy who saw an opportunity as an entrepreneur. I don't know if you know what the Colby Index is, but in the Colby Index, I'm a very high fact finder. So
yeah, I took it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty useful. At least it's helped me a lot. And in that high fact finder role, I had a lot of conversations. How are you using it? Who is using it for you? Who's the smartest guy doing it? Because I know a lot of high achievers and they're all like early adopters of things. So I'm by no stretch the guy who you would want to come in and say, hey, guys, here's all the tools we're going to use. But I have that guy. He's my business partner. His name's Dan Linden. He's chief AI officer for chiefaiofficer.com. But, we have conversations with businesses. I mean, the guys we were talking to today, they probably do $500 million a year in revenue. And Dan is he's the guy, right? Like he was able to, in 1 hour, really educate the leadership of that company on the application. You don't need to be that guy. I don't need to be that guy, but you need to have that guy or gal. I mean, to be PC or whatever.
Is the idea that ChatGPT, for example, is an ongoing conversation between a programmer and a programmer, but one is organic and one is non-organic, meaning like I'm asking questions to this, or through this network of information nodes that then spitting back varying degrees of, I guess, depth of inquiry versus like if I Google something right now, I'm going to get a surface level, almost like a surface level response.
Yeah.
Just information. And then
I think the difference would
I can
be
go deeper with how I engage with with like a ChatGPT type.
Yeah, I would say like with Google, they're like, here's a bunch of information, go figure it out. Right?
Yeah.
Go read these articles, watch these videos, whatever the case might be. With ChatGPT and tools like that, you are able to, okay, that's an interesting point, ChatGPT. What does that mean exactly? Or if I were to do this, would that answer? So you're able to really introduce a lot of calibration and nuance into the process of getting the result that you want. That's way beyond, because here's what Google says.
Way beyond just someone's ability to think, not to think, to retain or discover information.
Yeah. I'd say the difference, Google would be like, oh, you have a question? Here's a bunch of information, go figure it out. Right? ChatGPT is doing the figuring out for you. But now again, if you said like, what do I want for breakfast? ChatGPT is going to give you an answer. But if you said, I'm interested in weight loss, I'm allergic to this, I would like to maintain, I lose energy later in the day, my cholesterol is kind of high, so I'd like you can do all that stuff. What would be a good breakfast for someone like me? And ChatGPT will give you, like, the more detailed your prompt is, the more precise the answer is going to come back to you that's very specific to your query, whether it's as simple as what do I have for breakfast, or it's how do I develop an international or a multinational marketing campaign that we roll out over the next 18 months with, increased momentum, leveraging blah, blah, blah. Like it's that whole process, it's called prompt engineering.
Is like giving giving information and extracting information. There's a dance. There's an iterative. It's like having a conversation with a genius.
Yes.
God, what did Kierkegaard say about the genius? They're like windstorms. They come in, they knock it all down, and it's left. I don't know. I'm not ChatGPT, so I can't remember the quote. Which
yeah, and I'll tell you, it's interesting in the context of a podcast. I was watching one yesterday with the guy who wrote a book called Scary Smart. He was the chief business officer for Google X.
Wow.
And he was sharing, he's been involved in like automation and AI, we'll use that as a high level topic, for a long time. And he was the one that said, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who uses AI will take your job. And he was talking about how it would be the equivalent if Einstein, if we got somebody with let's say Forrest Gump, right? If we had Forrest Gump and Einstein sit down And Einstein was attempting to explain the theory of relativity to Forrest Gump, somebody with a low IQ. That is who we are as a human to ChatGPT. ChatGPT has literally trillions of pages of content that it can access in nanoseconds. So us as humans, we don't even know how to use the tool to its full, not even full, to 1/10 of its capability, because we just don't, we don't understand. It's operating at a different level as far as it's instant access to the Kierkegaard quote combined with, in the article or the audio I was listening to yesterday, they were talking about, creativity. AI could never, and he said, creativity is an algorithm in humans, like it's an algorithm. We take all the known ways of doing something, we remove what doesn't apply to this, and then we start, well, what if we did this? And what if we did this? And what if we did this? Like those types of things. So we operate on algorithms for a lot of things. So if that's the case, then even creativity may not be an exclusively human variable moving forward. So and again, I'm not the AI guru by any stretch. It's something that just honestly, I'm as an entrepreneur, we have the blessing, but also the curse of being able to see on opportunity everywhere, right? And the development of an entrepreneur is narrowing that focus or creating a discipline that says, great idea, but not for me, right? I can make $1 million doing that, but I'm focused here. Shiny object syndrome, right? So, so this was just, it was a beautiful example of entrepreneur seeing the opportunity, understanding there was opportunities there, not even seeing what it was, but just understanding this is a gold rush. I know a lot of very, very smart, very successful people, and they're very excited about business opportunities in the space. So I said, let me have some conversations to better understand what that is. And perfect example, the CAIO I have, right? Brilliant guy, has 20 years marketing experience and direct response. So he's not just a tech nerd or anything, but he wasn't able to see the opportunities I was able to see, right? So it's that fusion of finding the right person to support the exploration of the opportunities that I saw, which I knew that companies would need. They would need a trusted resource that they could say, hey, I'm hearing all this stuff, I don't know where to go, right? How do we do it, right? So I created essentially an army of trusted sources that my clients can now get bespoke advice on how it applies to their business, their initiatives this quarter, their 10-year goal. And the main areas where I'm seeing that there's a lot of interest is certainly increase in productivity, right? Not just on you personally, but how can we do this with everybody in an organization, right? Are there methodologies or tools that we can apply that makes everything from customer service, hi, thank you for calling, all the way up to people who are making, very important decisions in the business. They're looking for productivity. Everybody talks about content creation and that sort of thing. And an example on the call that I had today was somebody was saying that NerdWallet, if you're familiar with them, they had in December, they hired, his buddy worked there. And it's like, yeah, we just hired 100 new content writers for credit card related articles, right? I don't know that those 100 people still have a job.
Wow.
That fast, right? Because like everybody recognizes the content and SEO and coding and things like that. But one of the areas that we focus on for companies is certainly increasing productivity, but in the near term, improving sales results, leveraging tools to allow your sales team, your sales process to better, faster, stronger, like process more leads, more precise and predictive follow-up for prospects and that sort of thing. So those seem to be the two areas where most of the folks that we're working with are seeing the best results and have the most interest in application. Yeah, so that's
what about like on the macro, economic side? What are you seeing out there? I'm asking everybody, like,
sure.
are we in a lull? Is this, what does that mean? If so, is that even more exciting when it comes to tools? Like basically like this, I think of like, David and Goliath kind of thing.
Are you talking about using AI? Or are you talking about what are my thoughts on the macroeconomic situation globally?
Yeah, well, even just domestically, as far as our business is slowing down, and then does that make this even more appealing because of having different, lowering costs and trying to get, more blood out of the stone and, so yeah, first question is macroeconomic standpoint, because you talk to different people than me.
Yeah. I think that anybody that studies cycles, particularly something like a recent book, not terribly recent, but in the past 20 years or so, The Fourth Turning.
Oh, that's a great book.
Yeah, so I think anybody that understands that cycle of that has been predicted, and you can back test all the way back 500 years plus, would see that we are in that phase of that cycle where good times made soft people, and now we're in the process of soft people making hard times. I tend to be certainly an optimist. You have to be if you're an entrepreneur, right? Because everybody's trying to kick you in the balls. Especially when you're getting started. Once you get up, you realize it's just part of the game. But I'm an optimist. However, I have things that are important to me, my family and the resources that I've accumulated and things like that. So I'm also always looking at the black swan that could pop up, or risk. And I would say that we've gotten very comfortable as a society, despite the polarization, the extreme polarization that's being witnessed by all of us, and hell, we're all participating in it, right?
Yeah.
But I think just the math don't add up, right? Like the debt, the spending on military. Look, I'm a veteran. I'm hell yeah. Let's have a powerful. I want to protect my family, so let's. However,
Thanks
there's
for service.
There's a lot of things that cumulatively, in the aggregate, make me question the longevity of the status quo. So are people's, so that would be maybe like anywhere from, is that anywhere from tomorrow to 5 to 10 years from now. Things I would expect things to be, for us to have experiences that we just didn't think would come to pass, right? I think we should prepare for those things.
Economic and cultural or political, socio-political, or
all of the above. We got a lot of people on the planet.
True.
The climate stuff, that's for smarter people than me to figure out. I live in the desert. I don't use a lot of water. I recycle. Right? I'm not, at the gas pump, like on Zoolander, just wasting gas or whatever, or anything like that. But I don't have a position on that. But I think that there is a sense of security that a lot of people have because the lights have always turned on, the water's always been there. Granny gets her government check, that sort of thing, right? Those aren't, they're not like inalienable rights. Things could happen that could disrupt the level of comfort that we enjoy, particularly in in North America, particularly in the United States. As it relates to businesses, I think that businesses that aren't able to, like, here's a good example, and to go back to AI. Businesses that were late to the website game, right? They missed out on a lot of revenue and market share because Amazon was able to sell the toy that the local toy shop used to sell. But local toy shop, what's more convenient? Have somebody bring it to me, or get in the car, put the kids in the seat, drive over. Oh man, there's a wreck on 213 again, whatever, like. So I think that people that aren't prepared for, businesses that aren't prepared for this new paradigm, there will be an impact. Will it put them out of business? I don't know. Will they lose some market share, or will they have to work harder for the same output? I would say yes. So I don't think it's me personally, but listen, I worked at a company that had literally 5,000 people that their main job was to evaluate global economic occurrences, as well as read all of the quarterly reports from all of the publicly traded companies all over the world. So I was in a world where that was the discussion. What was going on? What's the data showing? What's the consensus? What's the sentiment? However, I'm not that expert, but I understand some basic things, and I think that we're in for. It's not, the easy times aren't ahead, is what I would say. Now, that's a general statement for most people. For those who are contrarians and have prepared for this type of situation, I think that, is it easy to watch a bunch of businesses closed, even if you were prepared or you shorted stocks, whatever your method was? I wouldn't call that easy if you have, a shred of humanity. However, for most businesses, there are things that are out of our control, that the train has left the station. It's heading towards its terminus, and we are but passengers. We're not conductors. So
wow, yeah,
that's my take on it.
Does that motivate you?
It doesn't motivate me in business. On Saturday, I'm going for a kinetic handgun class. Like
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So I spend a lot. I invest a lot of my time and resources in being somebody who has capabilities, can grow food, can filter water, that isn't reliant on Amazon showing up, right? So I'm not trying to go dark, everybody. This is just
well, somebody's got to warn us.
Yeah, well, the warning has been coming for a long time. 2008, what set me on this way of thinking was, there's an economist named Doug Casey, and Doug Casey was the first person to introduce me to this concept of this quote that came from maybe the Spanish Civil War. It said the difference between peace and anarchy is 9 meals, right?
9
meals. So if you think about it, that's essentially, 3 days without food. Let's say,
interesting.
The next COVID, but bioengineered to be much stronger than that, hits. You can't leave the house. For those who went and got all the toilet paper, that's great, but that's not going to fill you up. After 9 days, your kid's hungry, your wife's hungry, you're hungry. Hey, neighbor, I smell you're cooking something. Can I have some? Sorry, I got to feed my own family and I don't have much. Hey, that's not fair. You've got something and I don't. You need to share. I can't share with you. I've got to feed my family. Oh yeah, baseball bat, psh, Molotov. Like that's what that the steady state that we experience is it's not very deep. It wouldn't take much, right, to upset the tea kettle, so to speak. So Doug introduced me to that concept, and I thought, man, like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to have to deal with that situation. So that set me on a path of
Wow.
better understanding the things that could disrupt the steady state, I guess. So Jay, I don't have any idea if you thought the conversation was going to go this direction, but
Yeah, this is exactly what the Culture Matters podcast is all about, my friend.
okay.
Yeah. I always appreciate talking to you. I like the contrarian view. I think it made a lot of people successful in the even in our own Culture Matters grew exponentially in the pandemic because myself and my fiance, although we believed in the sickness, we personally, because of our age and our own psychology, we were not afraid to work every day. We traveled like in the air. We did about 350,000 miles in the air, and we grew Culture Matters as a firm exponentially in those few years. So I bring that up to make this point of the contrarian mindset. We had a contrarian mindset based on how we worked in that time, or that created it was an alienating time too. It felt alienated from family, alienated from friends and peers, and it was siloed. And so I'm really like the contrarian view. And I'm assuming that what you just said is contrarian. Maybe most people on this show listening are feeling the same way, maybe, right? So no, extremely valuable, because if you're saying, how could it get better before, how could it get, how could it not get worse before it gets better?
Yeah.
I'm listening and thinking like, well, the last few years have been very tough in a lot of ways, and in other ways, very rewarding based on a contrarian view.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, right? It's like, so no, this is great. What a good reminder in a lot of ways. I'm very motivated for the next 5 years in the sense that I'm scared of a lot of things, and I'm trying to use that fear through action towards aims that we've created together. You know, my immediate family, which would be my future wife, partner, towards something productive. And I would hope the audience is taking themselves, serious enough that they can do something about whatever they think the future holds for them. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, right? Like, we had a contrarian view in that time. And so it was some of the best decisions I made in my life during that time. I said I wasn't going to eat edibles, for example, until we got to a certain milestone. And I was like, what can I give up?
I think that there were certainly a lot of people accumulated resources, whether that's money, team, whatever the thing might be, for sure, during that time. So here's what I would tell people. Listen, I'm saying these things, and I expect to not be disappointed that humanity will fuck things up ever on a daily basis. I'm not fearful, and I'll tell you, and that comes from a whole different story, brother, that we could have about
Let's do it.
Spiritual awakening that came for me during COVID, that has really look, this might be helpful for a lot of entrepreneurs. You as an entrepreneur listening to this, or a business owner, you may not realize it, but I believe that you might have some anxiety that is just what do they call it? Generalized anxiety, right? That doesn't mean that you can't, like, you can't go out because you're nervous or whatever. But there are some beliefs or internal narratives that you've got about the definition of success here in the US, right? And the definition of success is more, right? It's not like be happy. It's accumulate. It's grind. It's all those things, right? And if you do something for long enough, that becomes your norm. And as an entrepreneur, I had a real awakening, because I was supposed to take over I was the interim CEO of a company that was doing about 50 million bucks. We had a target to get to 305 years, which at a 30% multiple, that would have given us about 90 plus million per year in revenue or EBITDA. And the multiples that were being paid for companies like I was running was a 10x would have been easy. So that was $1 billion situation. So here I was working on that $1 billion situation. Not happy, but like, oh, and my take would have been a pretty significant piece of that. And I would have been able to say, look how much, look how much better I am than you, because I did this thing. And that's not who I was, but the environment, I allowed the environment to get the best of me and become, or have an internal story that wasn't in line with my soul's nature, shall we say. Didn't matter that it wasn't in line. That was the path I was on. And in the process of getting there, that's a big goal. I was very aggressive when it was required. But that aggression was counter to the culture in that business. And about 3 days before the official transition was to occur, I got a call from the owner of the company. He said, you know what, man? It's not going to happen. You're not the guy. So I had invested a lot of my time exclusively on this opportunity. And what happened was, rather than being pissed, or instantly, the voice inside said, this is a good thing because there's a lesson here. Go figure that lesson out. Wow. And long story short, it was extremely transformative. It led me to have audiences with a lot of people who have left the rat race and have found what I think all of us are looking for, which is contentment, serenity, joy, and that is this paradox that I find myself in, where I'm not disturbed by the paradox, but how about this? I got a lot of guns and shit, but I spend an hour a day in meditation, and because of people like Michael Singer and others, I have immersed in a message that allows me to witness life unfolding as compared to react and carry a lot of anxiety or fear about life unfolding. That's a very compressed version of
what's that feel like today versus then? Or how do you even, is it ineffable? Can you try to articulate it for someone listening that?
So there used to be a lot of game planning, what if, what if? Well, okay, well, what if, what if? And I just don't go there anymore. Okay, I'll drop it on you. I don't think that we are like birth, school, work, death. Sure, we're going to do that, but there's something beyond, and you can define it however you want.
Well, there better be.
Yeah, the science is that we're low vibration carbon forms right now, but take a peek into quantum and you'll understand that everything is energy. So what does that mean? That means that I'm trusting that, and man, you know what really kind of fucked me up was, in a good way, was a book was released called After, and it was by an MD about near-death experiences.
Oh, wow.
And I listened to it, and the commonality of everybody's experience was like, wait a minute, like they're all seeing something pretty similar, which is weird because you got a mafia hitman and you got an 8-year-old kid and like all these different stories, yet their cultural indoctrination didn't cause them to have different experiences in this state of like 100% they were dead kind of thing.
Well, wait, what did they experience? Are you going to tell?
Yeah, they experience, to a person, they all experience a level of love that they can't describe, and they've never. So there's a grace that they all experience, and most of them don't want to come back, right? Like they're all like, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to come. I wanted to stay wherever. But a lot of them say, listen, we've done this before, and this isn't a new concept. I mean, if Hinduism and any religion that talks about reincarnation, right? Like we've done this before. We are spiritual beings possessing like a low vibration carbon entity, but we come here to learn lessons. And the lessons that we're learning, we knew we were coming to learn those lessons before we entered our consciousness entered this carbon form this time around. So even though we have amnesia about what happens beyond or what happened before, we came here with an understanding as that higher consciousness. We came with an understanding that we were going to suffer because of desires, because of preferences, because of prejudices, because of all those types of things. But in that suffering, there were lessons, and there were expansion would occur, and that the suffering happened so that we could not dwell in the suffering, but so that we could overcome the suffering through an awakening. And we've all, and if you don't learn the lesson this time around, that's okay. You'll get to do it again. Maybe not as Jay Doran next time, but as a human that's having hard experiences, and all of those people who have gone to the other side come back, they all say, like, nobody up there thinks that Earth is easy. They all know, like, Earth is a ball breaker. Like, you're going there because in a space of oneness, extreme unity, a level of love that you've never experienced, there is no separation, there is no trauma, but for consciousness to expand, those experiences need to occur so that consciousness now, like, has that in its catalog of understandings. So we are part of that source coming here to have those experiences but it's not for me, because I am part of it. But we're all like if you've ever seen a neural network in action, right? Like in the brain, we're those zaps or those dendrites or whatever those are that are like seeking out connections, right? So that, I mean, that's so much more to it than that. And I know that we've got a limited amount of time to discuss it, but so it's to just pursue the cup being full concept, right? Right. To just pursue filling the cup, you're gonna go, okay, now what? Right. And I think the now what, hopefully all of us get the chance to experience that, the now what being, let me evaluate, let me review my life and look at all the times that I've hurt people or I've been hurt, and what's the grace that came from that? What's the and if even if you can't grasp it now, please use your agency to come to find an experience or a tool or something that will allow you to see the beauty in all of the pain that you've had, or that those around you have had, or that happens in the world, or whatever the case might be.
I love it.
Deep shit.
Well, I think about this all the time, you know, why am I doing all this? Well, I want power that I'm never going to use. You know, I want authority that I hope to keep. I'd like influence because I haven't given enough grace. But I definitely don't think this is it. I mean, it in the sense, like,
Me
you know, and I haven't taken any leap or anything of that nature. It's funny. The other conversation I had today, I thought, you know, what, you know, am I so arrogant? I can't just take a leap. But, you know, I was raised atheist, is how I would describe it. In one sense, and in another sense, observed faithfulness.
Yeah.
And I was dogmatic about with my anti-faith for most of the life that I've lived up to this point. But there came a turning point where my feeling about a lot of what you're talking about started to shift, where I started to feel, I can't, maybe not like think this way, but like a sense of it's got to be better than this, whatever that is. And I've thought about this quite a bit, and I thought, well, my behaviors have changed in the last X amount of years, especially with pursuing cultural questions. It's because personally, it's a lot about, for me, the culture matters as an expression is psychologically, for me, is like, you know, it's an identity conversation. It's a personal quest. And so I started leaning into more dialogues with maybe people I had interpersonal conflicts of the past with. I started because I was exploring like all these ways to cope with my past and the void of the voids, and not just the voids, but like the voids of expression. Like who am I? Where do I come from? You know, I was saved by a family in one big sense. I was adopted, and there's, you know, what a gift. And in another sense, there's all these other questions that come with that. And where I'm trying to go with this is my feeling of, you know, what could be more than just my life as I see it, and what I'm doing in this quest for power, as I like to at least try to be honest with myself about it, you know, the entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah.
The feeling has changed is what I'm trying to articulate. I haven't taken any leap, but the feeling has changed. Whereas though before I would try to convince myself through convincing others that this is it, you know, it'd be ridiculous to, and then I would fixate on like, look at that person that says they believe this and look how they live. And that's just I would rationalize. And then it was like, look at all the bad things. It just became this head game. But my theory of it is psychologically, how I was living wasn't in a way where I'd be even open to the idea that I was worth more than this. Yeah. Anyway, I love the conversation because I think about these things all the time. Like, in one way or another, they come out through this show.
Yeah.
In one way or another. And so what I'd like to just tell you as a friend, like my feeling about this topic is I've had this last few years, especially like an excitement. I'm not in a rush to leave the party.
Yeah.
But there's an excitement. I don't know. Doubt is, like doubt, doubt. Maybe this is just me playing head games, but it's like, what if doubt is proportional to how capable I am of forgiving? And what if forgiveness is an iterative process of interaction? Like I'm thinking of all the people that I've ever experienced in my life, that have been in my life, those that have maybe good thoughts, good words of my good or not deeds, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like there's only so many people I'm ever going to interact with in my life, in the existence of my life. And in this pursuit of power, whether I was, aware of it or labeled as such in the past, I have regrets of how I've left people in the wake of myself. And so I've tried to make it as many, embrace as many conflicts as possible, and make as many, and be as honest as possible with my, I guess, destiny. And I think that my doubt is less from that, but I don't know. But the feeling has changed is my point. But I yet to have prescribed to a specific theology or concept as of yet, and I'm not sure if that's the answer either. But the feeling has changed. Part of me thinks like, God, at some point I might have to commit to something, even if, I don't know, but we have to if you're open to, I'd love to have you back. Maybe we could have this awakening together. It's a unique conversation in that sense. I like that we ended up here, starting with AI doesn't seem too odd either, by the way, because I thought maybe ChatGPT is God or something.
Oh, that's right. What?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, Jay, whether it was recorded or not, I'd love to have that conversation with you, man, because it's such a beautiful experience to have that doubt dissolve and stop being so inquisitive. Like one of the things that really kind of blew me away, they asked me a question and said, Chris, and I'll ask you the same question, Jay. Are you aware that we're having this conversation right now?
Feels like it.
Were you aware that we were having this conversation? Like, were you thinking, oh, we're having a conversation prior to me asking you that? Or were you just having the conversation?
A bit of both.
Okay. So now let me ask you, are you aware that you're aware? And what that question will do is it will start to take this, you will start to recognize that it's like when I talk to people and like meditate for an hour, I can't sit for 10 minutes. I tried it and the only thing, my mind wouldn't shut down. So wait a minute, you sat for 10 minutes and you said you got nothing out of it, but do you realize that you were aware that your mind wouldn't shut up? Like you weren't the mind in that moment. You were aware that the mind wasn't doing it. There's value there, because the more time that you can spend in that awareness of the witnessing what's happening rather than the thing happening, you being the moment, the thing that's happening, because that's not who you are. You are that witness, right? So the more times throughout the day that you can catch yourself being the witness, the more that doubt goes away, because you realize like the mind is fucking wild, dude. Like it's reading the books. The witness doesn't need those books. The mind needs those books. The mind needs to consume podcasts. The mind needs to speak at events and all that kind of stuff, right? And therein lies the source of all the suffering, because suffering is because I think the world should be this way. It's not that way. Therefore, I'm not happy. Therefore, I suffer. I should be rich. I should be younger. She should love me more. Like all of these preferences that we have nothing to do with us, that are outside of us, but because, oh, it's my birthday and it's going to rain on my birthday. Like we have no control over those things, but the more time we spend focused on our preferences or our judgments, the less time we have for serenity, right? Buddha said that life is suffering, and it wasn't necessarily that life, people think, oh, life is suffering. It's not. It's the desires of life, right? Like the desires that we have are the source of suffering. It's not life itself. Life is got no charge at all. Good day, bad day, who knows, right? But it's the attachment that we have to the meaning that we're attaching to the event that's unfolding in front of us that is the source of suffering, right? So anyway.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I think about the Schopenhauer, and Schopenhauer was the first the Western philosopher to draw from the Upanishads and Eastern philosophy. And he said, we can do what we want, but we can't want what we want. Yeah, chew on that. Well, this is where I'm at in that. I did not choose to come into, my adolescence in the way that I came into it, with the influences that have influenced me in the ways that I think they have to put me on this path to be agreeable in some sense, to be an advisor, and disagreeable in another sense, to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not a good evildoer.
Yeah.
That's not my fate. How can I be a do-gooder in a way that still vibes with this, like, I don't see myself doing anything other than what I'm doing, wholly aware that, I'm absolutely not independent at all. I'm a slave to these desires of power. And I'm all right with that. Now, if that's a play track, one thing I'm not pursuing is happiness. Like me personally.
Yeah.
And now why? Well, maybe that's how I've been programmed, based on what I didn't choose. What am I pursuing? Well, a freedom that will never come true. In I don't know. I'm aware. Oh no, I'm in the game, and I'm playing the game, and I played a lot of games, and I'm not interested in playing other games. I'm going to play this game, and that is what I want to do. But I didn't get to choose what I want to do, and that's okay. I'm playing this game. How I play, like I thought about this, but I think about this constantly. For me at this stage, it's how I'm playing the game is going to create meaning in the suffering or not. how I'm playing the game, who I play with, how I play with them. I'm obsessed with this, like, right, how I play with the people I'm choosing to play the game I'm playing with. But I'm definitely in pursuit of all the things that I think maybe everyone else is, whether they're aware of that or not. And I've still chosen to pursue. So maybe, then I think, oh, well, then I'm just a big coward. And I'm like, all right, that's where I'm at. I'm a coward. So that's what I'm doing. Pursuing cowardice. Sure. It's like, don't get me started on this stuff. And so, okay, what are the mediums that's enabling me to pursue my pursuit of power cowardly? Is this podcast where I get to have generally less engaging conversations from a conversational standpoint, more so inquiring and hiding, representing power in another form, so that I can pursue the funnel that I've got of how I pursue power and how I provide power to others to pursue power at varying degrees of awareness and education, whatever that means. Right, as they're interwoven in each other, right? Like content, the filtering of content, right? The contents of the world based on whatever one does. If they're a CEO, right? Their labor too, their labor of debt, their capital stack, other people's. So anyway, no, I definitely agree. Or at least I follow everything you're saying, and I think I'm just I've committed to this game. Like when I played World of Warcraft when I was in high school, I never stopped playing the game. I've just assumed this persona, and I'm still a warlock. I think about that a lot. What does that mean, right? What does it mean? I don't know. I think outside of the determinism of, I'm either going to shit or get off the pot. We're either going to have a kid and I'm going to replicate and I'll just be a footnote in their story. Or it's just gonna, I'll be an end in myself, I guess. And I think about that a lot too. Am I Alexander the Great or am I King Philip? Because Alexander the Great wasn't who he was without Philip. Philip often doesn't get talked about much. Which one am I? Right now, I'm Philip. I haven't even begun to show anybody Alexander. So where I've settled is currently, I think that I'm pursuing power in a cowardly way proportional to my capabilities. And I'm not, upset about that to the degree by which it would force me to get off the nail. I do like what I do, though. This reminds me of this Netflix documentary that I highly recommend to you and anybody listening. I was watching last night, called Eat the Rich, about the GameStop shorting. And at the end of it's not ruining it because this was on whatever, but one of the main characters in that documentary expose, it was like meme stocks got the meme people. He said, because they tried to accuse him of manipulating the stock. He was a nobody. He was like a nobody, and he made all this money off it. He said in front of the Washington D.C. He said he looked up at them after his expose, like what do you call it, where they try to put you in front of the lawyers, depose you.
Yeah,
and he just looks up and says, "I like the stock." And it's like, I just like this cage.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my stay. I get my 3 meals a day. I get to feel like I'm not a loser, proportional to who they thought I was or could be. They, right?
Yeah.
The people I'm fighting from, my past. And it's like, nah, I feel pretty good most of the time. But I will say the reason I think I feel pretty good most of the time is because I say no more than I used to in some contexts. And I say yes more than I used to in some contexts. And I'm stronger in other contexts than I was at one point. I feel so. Yeah, I it's like I'm a coward that has bravery.
You have to have both. You can't have one without the other.
And like, what is life out for me at least? What's life outside of like these kinds of conversations?
Yeah.
Like, I've never done the small talk thing, right? That's painful. You want me to be unhappy? Force me to have small talk. So I guess my fate is the podcasting, right? My fate is to be in equities and to try to solve problems and pursue my curiosities in my endeavor for power, which I definitely didn't choose, because I can do what I want, but I can't want what I want. I mean, I've been disrespected so much on this. Like, I'm who I am because of who, how I was or was not raised, who was around me, who wasn't, and all those, how my genes represented themselves. I mean, shit, I don't know. What do you think? And then we definitely have to do a part 2 on this one. I think, like, this is like a chat GPT conversation, for God's sake.
Yeah. I think that, why don't we do this? Why don't we have a conversation that's not recorded?
Oh, I'm in.
And I think that, not because I have any concerns about, I don't give a shit what people think about me anymore. So it's not that there's anything that I want to hide or that I don't want the world to hear. I have zero attachment to what somebody's opinion of me is, because of where I find myself, where, like, the serenity that generally I experience because of the past year and plus of my life. So that's not the reason I don't want to do it on there on recording. However, it could be a really long conversation, and the more Rich Schefren said this, the more personal it is, the more universal it is. So it's not that there's stuff that you would say that somebody else would go, I don't understand what they're talking about. Like, we all are having this human experience. So we're all.
Oh, I'm following you there. I believe this wholeheartedly, that the medium matters. The recording changes. There's an inherent lie in the technology, I think, separate from us, until we integrate as a species with the technology. So I'm not off kilter on that whatsoever. Like, I've observed it myself and in the interactions that occur. As soon as the recording's on, and I've theorized about this quite a bit. Like, yeah, can I get to the point where I'm naked enough with the self that I've, with myself, I'll just keep it simple, where I can be fully whatever I'm capable of being with the world simultaneously? Can I do that? Maybe I can't even answer that question because I'm not yet a cyborg. But essentially, I totally get that, not about the not recording, because the recording changes the medium below self-awareness, and the idea that we're not, that we are, like, even if I just the allegorically, like what you said earlier about me thinking about me, and then me hovering over me, thinking about me and you, like, I totally get all that. We could do that offline. Generally speaking, though, I'd love to have you come back on the show, because it would. Yeah. But I totally follow you there. And I think that's a lesson for the audience too, is like, I'll just speak to it. I believe as soon as I hit recording, I've always seen it. And I know, and in it changes everything. And if we think it doesn't, we're being programmed we're programming we're programming ourselves without intention. We're being programmed by ourselves using platforms.
Yeah. It's like in sociology or where they say that just observing the tribe affects that tribe's behavior, right? You can't truly see how the tribe behaves, because if they know they're being observed, they're no longer, like, you just being present as an observer, not even a participant in it, affects the outcome. It's like quantum. It's a wave, until that wave is observed, and then it becomes a particle upon the point of observations.
Yeah, that's why I thought a lot about these, all of this podcasting. What's the value of it? How is it? How are all of these platforms, these social platforms, altering our species? And it's creating a meta film that above essentially all the institutions are going to crumble. Everything is going to react to how humans relate to one another through these mechanisms that allow us to essentially be completely transparent with one another to a degree that is not human up to this point.
Yeah.
Right. It's not, it's like a lot of, here's an example. It's rude to say a lot of things.
Okay.
Like it's rude to tell the truth. Because the truth is proportional to what two people are bringing into a context. Like, you know, they're perceiving a content, like maybe they're solving a problem together. It's like, it can be devastating to someone to tell them what you think about them, to tell them what you think about a situation. It could completely it just destroys the whole culture to the point where you could want the best for someone and get the worst for them and yourself. So I just think we're up to this stage, like as humans, we're built to just lie. And so as in every way, omission and explication, to just lie profusely. And just as we integrate with these recordings and these platforms and all these things, it's going to kill us. It's going to completely rip us apart and
just
put us back together. What would you say? Sorry.
We'll just be avatars. We won't even be the real thing. We'll be a representation of the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I guess I say all that to agree that, yeah, let's talk offline. And, you know, if the audience is blessed enough, oh, you got Charlie's over there. Yeah, we bonded all that time ago over that, huh?
Yeah, I saw the bobbleheads back there.
Yeah, it was a gift, actually. Do you ever, Nietzsche? I got the Nietzsche bust. You got the mustache right there. Friedrich Nietzsche. I'm big on him. Anyway, Chris, I love you, buddy. It's always good to talk to you.
Blessings,
and
brother.
We'll catch up soon, my friend.
Yeah.
And I actually completely forgot we had an audience. So let me just say bye to them. Everyone listening to this, we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.